archaeologists keep finding ancient human remains that don't look like they were simply abandoned. Some were carefully placed. Some were covered. Some were modified. But there were no religions yet. No written rules. So who decided what to do when someone died, and why? You're sitting near the fire late one afternoon. The person who shared meat with you 2 days ago isn't moving. Their chest is still. The group notices at different speeds. One person keeps talking for a few seconds before they realize. Another goes quiet immediately. No one has a word for the exact thing that just happened. There is only the body, the silence, and the fact that night is coming. For roughly 300,000 years, this was a normal part of life. Death was not rare. It was not hidden. It happened in the middle of everything. Let's start with what the evidence actually shows. At sites across Africa, Europe, and the Near East, archaeologists have found bodies that were deliberately arranged. At Kafzeh Cave in Israel, roughly 100,000 years ago, a young adult was placed on their back with the hands folded and a large block of red ochre near the head. At School Cave, not far away, another individual was buried with the jaw of a wild boar. These are not random. Someone made choices. Further back, at Cima de los Huesos in Spain, more than 24 individuals of an early human species were found at the bottom of a deep shaft. The bones show no signs of having been dragged by animals. The simplest explanation is that living people carried them there and dropped them in. A place for the dead, separate from the living, already existed hundreds of thousands of years ago. Then there are the modifications. At some sites, bones show cut marks that look like deliberate defleshing. At others, skulls appear to have been kept or altered. These practices weren't universal. They weren't consistent. Different groups in different places made different decisions. But the pattern is clear. When someone died, the living did not simply walk away. So what did a day after death actually look like? The body stays where it is at first. Moving it immediately isn't always possible or necessary. People continue the basic work of survival, checking traps, repairing tools, watching children, while the fact of the death sits in the middle of camp like a second fire. Conversations become quieter. Someone might sit close to the body for hours. Others keep a slight distance. If the group is small and mobile, decisions have to be practical. Leaving the body in the open attracts scavengers and predators. Carrying it long distances is exhausting and dangerous. So many groups almost certainly practice some form of exposure or temporary placement followed by later handling of the bones. In colder climates, the ground was too hard to dig. In forests, the trees and soil offered other options. In open landscapes, distance and animals did part of the work. What looks like ritual to us may have started as problem solving. Covering a body with stones or branches keeps animals away. Placing it in a specific location keeps the smell and the danger away from the sleeping area. Using red ochre might have been practical. It has mild antibacterial properties, or it might already have carried meaning we can no longer recover. We simply don't know where the practical ended and the symbolic began. The psychological side is harder to dig up, but we can see its outline. In a group of 20 or 30 people, every death is personal. There is no anonymity. The person who died knew your habits, shared your food, and occupied a specific place in the web of relationships that kept everyone alive. When they are gone, the web has a hole. The group feels it immediately. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups still living in similar conditions report a common pattern. After a death, there is often a period of quiet withdrawal mixed with practical continuity. People do not collapse into prolonged public grieving the way many modern cultures do. They also do not pretend nothing happened. The absence is acknowledged through changed behavior, through stories told at night, through the way certain places or objects are treated for a while. Nighttime is when the absence becomes most obvious. The fire is smaller. One voice is missing from the conversations. The stories shift. Sometimes the dead person appears in them. Sometimes the group talks around the absence instead of through it. And then, after a few days or weeks, the practical reality reasserts itself. The group moves. Food has to be found. Children still need attention. The dead do not keep the living warm at night. Life continues because it has no other choice. Here is the part that sits uncomfortably with modern expectations. For most of human history, death was not an event that required specialists. There were no professional undertakers. No clergy, no separate industry built around the end of life. The same people who hunted and gathered and told stories also handled the bodies of the people they loved. They made the decisions in real time, based on weather, landscape, group size, and whatever shared understanding they already carried. That understanding was almost certainly different from ours. We treat death as a rupture that must be managed, sanitized, and given meaning through formal ceremony. For hundreds of thousands of years, death was simply one more fact that the group had to absorb and keep moving past. The meaning, if it existed, lived in the stories told afterward and in the quiet adjustments people made to the empty space left behind. You live in a world where death is professionalized and mostly invisible until it arrives. Bodies are removed quickly. Rituals are scheduled. Language is carefully chosen. The physical reality of a person stopping is kept at a distance. Your ancestors lived the opposite arrangement. Death stayed close. It happened in the same places where people ate and slept and raised children. The living had to decide, with their own hands, what to do next. They left us almost no written explanations. Only the careful placements, the ochre, the shafts, the cut marks, and the long silence that followed each loss. That silence is still there, under every modern funeral. We just cover it with more steps, more words, and more distance than they ever had the option to create.